I believe he's still alive. Like, so if he's still alive, there's a job to be done. Um, I mean, I wish people in the UK, Muslims in the UK, take a set of these three books, plus some of some some generous gifts. Contact Richard, go to him, give it to him, without uttering a word, without uttering a new word. I just want, I mean, I wish if people in the UK did their duty, because when Richard was busy proselytizing people of faith into atheism a long time ago, I was at I was at my place watching TV, and he was in one of the talk shows, and there were several Muslims in the audience, and he was challenging them, stating, "What does the Quran talk about the heavens?" And he was like mocking at them as to what Quran talked about, the sort of heavens that it talks about. So I felt ashamed sitting and watching that presentation while he challenged Muslims in the audience, and they were dumbfounded, and no one could give an answer. Neither did I back then had any answer to myself. So that was the beginning of my journey to really wonder about what are those heavens in the Quran. It was a long time ago, at least I can say 13 to 14 years ago. That's when I started to contemplate about what sab'a samawat are in the Quran, and easily time went by, but there was hardly any answer, and I felt ashamed the pass of the day that being present in this age of astronomy, um, we as Muslims, we need to have a comprehensive answer to that question. So after that, after a long time, since that incident happened, I immigrated to Australia, and after coming here, I met a group of atheists in town. I mean, I just want to stop here and ask you guys, are you listening? I mean, is it making sense? Are you getting the story? Are you with me? So after coming to Australia, I met this group of people in town who vehemently rejected God. Not just rejected, they mocked the very idea of God, and they belittled people of religion. They they thought people of religion were just a heap of waste on planet Earth, and uh, religion, in their opinion, would just die out, which is, by the way, happening. But I, when I met them, I inquired what was their strong objection against God or religion. So they came up with a range of answers, which was their basis to have grown out of religion. Because you can imagine, the Caucasians, just a generation ago, had their roots in Christianity, and it's only in the modern age. It's only today, in the present day and age, that people who once um, were religious, or even now, at least their parents or grandparents are still religious, or I can say subscribe to having faith in God, their children and grandchildren are increasingly quitting religion, faith, questioning God, and the very purpose of religion. So these people had a range of answers that would substantiate their disbonding from religion. And I thought most of the objections they have made appeared to me to be motivated from the fact that people of religion themselves they misbehave. So a large part of that problem has stemmed due to the fact that there has been a lot of crimes in the church. And when it comes to Islam, it's very plain to everybody's eyes that Muslims are in deep conflict. They've got a civil war that has never ended since it had begun like 14 centuries ago. So it is for everybody to see, plain and simple. So the reasoning goes, I mean, if God was this merciful God and his religion would guide people to peaceful living, certainly this would not be the case with people of religion on planet Earth. So this just tells them that how bad is religion and how man-made is God. So which is which is a strong basis for them to reason that way. Because when they see people of religion fight, they would just go, "Okay, God is made up by man, and that's why man fights over God to have some sort of authority over people." So that's how it makes sense to the observer, and I don't blame them. And and so the discussions continued, and it boiled down to um, ratifying the communication of God was God given and not man made. So, in doing so, there were three fundamental questions. And those were the three fundamental objections um, by the camp. That was the first thing was, I mean, if there was a God who made universe and wanted us to believe, then he should have told us something about how he made it as a point of information such that it would make sense to us and our conscience be appealed to it, have faith in such an entity. That was a very sound ask. And I couldn't say that it was irrational to pose such a question, especially in the wake of the Quran that I was reading, where the Quran itself describes Burhanum min Rabbikum as a proof from your Lord. So that was a very um, very strongly pitched question in the line of the Quranic um, narration. You know what I mean? So that was 10 out of 10 for that question, and that's the point when I felt the need, and there was this need to explain what the Quran says about God creating the earth and its skies. And I knew that Quran talks about it in great detail, but I did not know the whole sequence. And that's what I retired to do. You know what I mean? So I sat back and I started pulling all the verses that on the subject. And what came out to be is the book that explains how God created it in very scientific terms. Uh, if anybody gives it a shot, it will be very difficult for them to put up criticism or denial of the fact that the Quran explains the creation sequences of the planet Earth and its skies. So that led into the next book, which was the next question. That was, how did life originate? Saying evolution has to throw so much light into how life evolved on Earth. So the obvious question that came into the mouth of the camp that I was talking to was, they were partly convinced with the first book and they were dumbfounded, and they came up with this next question. Obviously, they wanted to know more what the Quran talked about origins of life. So that's when during this time they had given me lots of books to read, and I had read many different books on evolution. So when I had read those, I knew how to write a rebuttal and how to present the story of origins of life from the Quran, and that's what I sat down to write. So that became the second book. That's Creation of Earth and Origins of Life. And one of the prominent or salient questions that always came up the lips of the atheists was, why is God's religion so cruel? So the law of God is misunderstood or misinformed to the world to be cruel, very cruel. So there was a very strong need to clarify what Sharia actually is, and that's when I wrote my third book. It's called Sharia for Australians. So this book is pitched to the Australian society to better it, to improve it, to advance it. Yeah, so that's the story behind the books. Mm. So, I mean, obviously, I told people about the first book a lot more than I did about my second two books, because informing people about my first book was very laborious and it took a toll on me, a lot of time spent, and hardly any responses from the community. So I was not motivated enough to inform the community about my second two books. I just wrote them, and put it there. Mainly, I pitched it to the camp that I was having a debate with, like discussions with. When those discussions are ongoing, like for years, many years since my immigration into Australia. So mainly, I was behind them, and not so much with the Muslim community, because the Muslim community was sort of not responding, and yeah, that's the story behind the books. If you have any questions so far, type them out, or if you have any plans of uh, in regard to my request that I made to extend these books to Richard Dawkins. I would be keen to know if there's any plans in that regard, or if you have If you may have any questions, so feel free to go ahead. So it's been an hour here on this stream, and yeah, I will be keen to take your questions if any. Then close the stream for today, and we can catch up next week to read the Quran. I mean, to understand the Quran.